Well, this is the end, my friends. Thank you for spending the semester with me. I hope you got a lot out of it. I really appreciate you spending the whole time with me in this online course. I know online courses aren't easy, although you don't have to really go out and do them. It also isn't easy to teach. It's a lot harder than being in person. I'm a type of person that loves to kind of wing it. This is my subject field. I've been doing online media research since my master's in the late aughts, so it's 2006 to 2010. And so this is kind of just my expertise. So when I have to actually write it out and create a course for it, it's a lot harder than going to class and just kind of feeling how it goes. Because of how new media shifts so rapidly, it's to create a holistic view of understanding the field is very difficult because it's always different. And since 2016's elections, obviously way different. And that's not even to encounter the idea of the Arab Spring and Occupy movements of 2011. There's so much that's changed due to digital media that we don't really have a grasp on how quick it goes. That's why when we talk about man, this year feels like it was the longest decade of my life, it really feels that way because the amount of compression of data and information that happens in any given time. When I created this course 10 years ago, it was almost in reaction to I think we talked about this at the beginning. It was in reaction to the Miracle on the Hudson in January of 2009. So that summer, I developed the new media course, Intro to New Media, this one that you're in now, and then it eventually became the new media major in 2013, of which that I've been working in since, up until next semester when it's my last semester at Malloy College, and I move on to who knows where at this point. But it's about time that I try to find a new space to work in. I think it's important for new media to grow, and my attachment to it is never going to stop. I really appreciate you guys taking this course and being part of my adventure too, this decade-long watch. And in that response, I want you to know that your responses this semester have been the best I've ever had. And I know every teacher says that, this is the best class we ever had. That's not true. Some classes suck. Some crops aren't great. But your guys' responses were really good and really well thought through. And I think that's because you've spent the majority of your lives in digital media as well, and really have been tuned into what's been happening in the shifts of culture around us all this time. So your responses weren't just responses. They were culturally coherent ideas that were coming forth through the pages. And I'm really, really proud of those things because it makes me think differently. Some of you said things in your papers that I'm just well, holy shit, that's quite amazing. I never really even thought of it that way. So thank you so much for really putting your all into the work that was in this class. I know some of it was conceptually difficult, and some of it was sometimes maybe too easy or weird, but I really appreciate all the responses you gave to it. So we're at the end. So there's only one more project left, which is your final, and it's a project called You Are New Media, which I'll get to at the end of this vlog, but I just want to sum it up that one last thing to talk to you about, which is the genuine understanding of what we're dealing with in our present as of this point. There's a reason we end this course with her and the concept of robots. And really one of the things that I wanted you to recognize was that the movie Her represents the singularity, a moment in our future that we're going to live through, which is quite odd to think about. That at some point in our lifetime, they're going to put what will be considered a consciousness, may not be an organic consciousness, but they will consider a consciousness inside of digital spaces, something that can adapt and be as human as possible. Jibo is nothing like that. Neither is Alexa nor Siri. These are machines that basically are query bots from a search engine that's deep inside a server base. Samantha in the movie Her kind of represents the moment in which we move past the singularity, in which a consciousness can grow, where basically the server is quantum and unlimited. And that type of consciousness is in our future. The reason it's called singularity is it's borrowed from physics, is when it's the moment of we don't know what. There's basically, in physics, there's a black hole. We know that black holes exist, but we don't know what happens when you get past the event horizon, which is the border where gravity well pulls you into it. Inside of that is the singularity, which is basically the scientific way of doing the shruggy. We just don't know what happens. So what we assume is that it's exponentially, infinitely great or infinitely bad. We just don't know. And that's the same thing that happens with the idea of consciousness inside of robotics. What happens when we wake this thing up? Is there instantly world peace, or does it look at our machines and be well, nothing's going well, let me take over? We don't know. At this point, we have no idea what's going to come from that. I think for those of you who handed it in, I think you responded pretty well to the who is she piece. But I need to clarify something that I think is just different than previous semesters in which there was response on this, and maybe it was because I bundled it with Jibo. The idea of who she is, Spike Jonze's her was based on the Cleverbot. And I don't know if you've ever used Cleverbot. You can go check it out online. There'll be a link down below. Cleverbot is a chatbot that you could talk to a robot. And when Spike Jonze used it in the early 2000s, it gave him the idea for her, which took him almost 15 years to make. And after he made it, it was basically the embodiment of what it means to communicate with an inanimate object. And the bottom line, the thesis of his film, is actually a human piece. Her, because it's a gendered pronoun, is actually about Catherine. It's about the device that spends the way of helping him get over a deep emotional relationship in his life in the vacuum of isolation and loneliness. And if you get a chance to watch it again, you should watch it from the point of view that watch the movie and imagine that Samantha is just a therapist or a crutch that basically is a companion to help him get through the moment. The other her answer is the friend at the end, in which the female relationships in his life, the human relationships in his life, are the actual physical attributes. And this is what I want to leave you with in this class, is that new media itself is a cultural studies, but it's not about emergent media. It's not about tools. It's not about technology. It's not about talking to a phone. It's not about buying an Alexa for your house or using Amazon warehouses. It's not about the Atlas robot doing backflips. It is about how humans interact with one another. A lot of what happens in new media studies, and what I study in particular, is how this stuff affects us in an interpersonal way, how we are being pushed into a distraction-oriented lifestyle, that the fast-paced nature of what's going on is designed for high levels of consumerism, for us to be purchasing a lot, to be consuming a lot, and to be thinking that the next new technology is the thing that will make our lives better. If you even just look at the evolution of the GoPro, you could see this. GoPro used to be this action cam, this small device that would be like, oh, let's jump in the water, let's rush around, let's do things. And then in the most recent iteration of this, it's now turned on the subject. It's now been given a bodysuit with lights and a reverse camera so you could do like vlogging style work with the GoPro instead. And that just tells you a lot about what we're aiming for in terms of how people interact with media. That we're slowly making this mirror, this black mirror when it's off, but not black mirror when it's on. We're making this mirror of reality, this projection of self, as a primary device of how peer-to-peer consumerism will work. That could be both good and bad. That's really of how we as a community decide on how to use these tools. They're just tools. They're just things that we could do. All tools can be used improperly. You could make a house with a hammer or break a head. It's the same tool, it's just how it's done. The arbitrary nature of the lines on a road are as important as understanding that you stay within it because you feel like there's some sort of social contract to do that. What's important is to understand the human-to-human connection. As we go into the future, as the time of the singularity gets closer to us, as does climate change, as do things that are changing around us that are outside of our immediate control. However, we have to think about how we could live together better in times that are going to be rapidly shifting, much more than we can imagine. Because we don't yet have the memory of the future, we are going to be experiencing this all in real time. And I know that comes off as quite daunting. That's heavy. That's a lot to think about all at once. That while you're walking, you might be walking down the street next to a bipedal robot. And that bipedal robot might be there to help you, like Marty in Stop and Shop, which I have very poor feelings about. I don't like that thing at all. But those types of things are that we will slowly become accustomed to that type of lifestyle that Theodore lived in the movie Her, where it will be okay to date a robot, or the idea where it will be okay to communicate or have a companion that is inanimate. What we don't want to see, and what we don't want the outcome to be, is to end up in the world of WALL-E, where there's no humans left on Earth, just robots. There's always this joke that goes around in technology circles, which is Mars is a planet occupied by robots at this point. And that is, we don't want Earth to be that. We don't want Earth to be a vacant of humankind because we've turned it into a husk of its old self due to the catastrophic events that we're slowly contributing to at this moment. What matters is that you put yourself into your community and you talk to people about it. You communicate with what do these changes do? How much of this is part of our control, or how much is it because of a distraction measure of systems that are overarching? In other words, we need to slow down. We need to have the ability to take a deep breath, look at what the systems and structures are that create these new media technologies. Where does the information flows come from? I mean, how much does it affect us? What does Facebook do to us? What does Facebook do to our family? And what does Facebook do to communities? Ask the questions before taking action, because these are the things that won't stop being made. Jibo represented something really important because it represented the death of an independent robot. That's bad news, because those independent little bots and those independent projects will become part of our past as bigger companies like Facebook, Google, and Amazon become the primary distributors of everything we know. We have to keep in mind that there's ingenuity that comes from each and every one of us, and the farther it goes away from us, the farther we'll have a grasp on how to make those things change. But if we are able to communicate with our closest peers and our friends and our family, we're then able to make sure that we can keep control over the future and be amazing creators. Now, in the end, there's one thing that I want to encourage you to do. And I know this kind of goes against what I just said, but I want you to be a creator. I want you to do as much creation as possible. I want you to, this is the time in your life where you can make whatever you want. As long as you're still a student, you're still young, you're still literally at any age, you can make things. We have a clock in our office that says, make something every day, even if it's not great. And I love that term. I also like thinking ABC, always be creating. That's the way to move. When everybody has these tools, you can create something, and your goal is to make something that's completely new and original. But even if it isn't, the feeling of completion and creation is so important. Make sure it's shared, make sure people see it. Do weird things, do things that are different, because this may not always be possible. I've been fortunate enough to see how these classes, the platforms have changed. When I first started the program, YouTube didn't have as much of an algorithm. It didn't have a YouTube Premium. It didn't have a way of blocking people out from getting a unique URL. And in 2015, they decided that you need 500 subscribers for that. And it's amazing that these gates are going to slowly appear inside of our digital media space. But it doesn't mean you're blocked out yet. And I mean that sincerely, yet. It's important for you to start creating as much as possible and as much as you can at any time. There's an unofficial slogan we have for the program that we're not allowed to make as our official slogan because it just doesn't fly. But we always talk about the ability to do epic shit. That's the thing you should do, is really understand that all of this ability should be beyond what we think we could do. Do the epic shit. Do things that can't be done normally. Don't think too much about what's being restricted of you. Understand that these are platforms that allow you to go out. Make the things that you want to, and obviously within reason and not inappropriate or horrid, but the things that make you feel creative and get your ideas flowing. You should be doing it. There's nothing stopping you. If I'm standing here with just a simple phone talking to a camera, you can do this with pretty much anything, and it's just a matter of it will help you in all the parts of your life. And I know that because there's literally, I think, 70 people that are walking around with this degree. They have jobs, they're all working. They do everything. They do things from teaching, they do things to editing for Keeping Up with the Kardashians. They do things where they work with Doug Rushkoff at Queens College. I have social media managers. There are people that are doing everything with this degree that you can do with any degree. It doesn't have to be this. You just have to take it and be empowered by what you know. So the last project is called You Are New Media. And it's basically called that for some dumb reason that I don't know any longer, but it really is about understanding that you are actually this. So your job is this. It's very simple. Pick one thing from the semester that changed you, that you had to think about. So you go through all of your notes and go through all the canvas and look back and pick the thing that you feel was like the most impactful for what you learned this semester. Then all you have to do is either in a vlog or in a PowerPoint, whichever one you want. It's really up to you. As long as it's presented properly. You have to be the teacher. I want you to pretend that you're going to be telling somebody who doesn't know anything about new media. So think of like a relative that's like kind of offline. Think of like a friend who doesn't really get that much time to do this. Or think of somebody who uses the internet or new media uncritically. I want you to explain in your final project, 1, what's the thing that affected you the most and why? And 2, how would you tell somebody about it that has no idea about it? So that you can make this character up. But how do you turn it into the words? How do you explain it? Put it into your words, put it into your explanation. And this way it tells me that you've synthesized that information and you have the ability now to be the expert on it. Anyone can be the expert on new media. I don't know if I told you this at the beginning, but I didn't use any of the internet until about 2006. I grew up with chat rooms on Prodigy and AOL, but I really thought it was a phase. I thought it was going to go away. And then when my friends made weenie girlfriends, that's when I was like, oh, wow, this internet thing might be a thing. And that's when well, at the time I was also at MTV and we were casting through MySpace. I was like, maybe this is going to be this thing. And I started studying it. So I am new to new media. In other words, I wasn't born in it like you guys are. So that means you have a much more capable way of being a new media instructor than I ever could be. I'm a television producer. That's my background. I do TV. I'm a very traditional media person, but this is my passion. I enjoy understanding and studying the internet culture. Hell, I took a PhD in cultural studies. Studying culture. I'm a meme doctor. That's nearly useless, but it's very important to our future. At least I hope so. I guess we're going to see how these things unfold. So I really wish you guys the best in the future. Thank you for spending the semester with me. If you have any questions or you want to come by the office to try VR, Wilbur 104A, I'm here for another semester. You can come by and play the Oculus Rifts. You can play our Nintendo Switches that we have in there. If you ever need advice or a letter of rec, please email me. And if you ever just want to grab a coffee, please email me and let me know. And we'll go meet up and talk about weird memes. And if you are taking the memes course next semester, I think it's on Thursday nights. It's only 5 weeks, and you get to be a meme lord. So it's a little weird. I think there's still space in it if you're interested in it. So looking forward to your final projects, and thank you again. And have a very good winter break. Happy holidays, and I hope to see you next semester.